Hello everyone and welcome to the new episode of Entrepreneurship Lab, a podcast where you're learning how to scale, grow your business, sell, create your exit strategy, find more clients, and so many different topics. As always, we are bringing amazing guests, entrepreneurs who have practical skills and knowledge and expertise in different areas. And also I'm here as a business consultant and a sales strategist to help you scale and increase your business, right? Globally, internationally, or locally, whichever you want. So today we're going to talk about hiring and bringing new people to your team. And I want to share with you some very important questions that you should ask and discover before you are bringing a new person, to know if they're the right fit and they can achieve things and set the bar even higher than you want it to be. So we're gonna discover this very interesting topic. Before we do that, make sure to give us some likes and hearts, download this episode, subscribe to the podcast, and share it with at least one more person that's going to benefit from listening to this. Now, let's talk about hiring a team and hiring the right people, and how should you discover if they're the right fit or not. If you're expanding and growing, at some point you're going to have to hire the team and hire more people because of the workflow you will have. And eventually you want to, maybe step out of your company or your business and have others do the work while you're just running your company. You're not actually working, you're not self-employed, but you're running the business. So to do this, of course, we need to find the right people, and working with people is always the hardest part of every business. And I think finding the right fit and finding the talent and somebody with skills that we need and putting them then on the right position, in the right environment, in the right company, can be very complex and can take time. And if you speak with any recruiter, HR specialist, or any business owner, they will tell you it takes time, it takes maybe several interviews, and it's really not an easy thing. But today I want to share some questions that are crucial to discover if this person has a problem-solving mentality or not. And I truly believe that problem-solving mentality is the number one skill you can find in the person if they're solution-oriented or they're problem-oriented, right? So are they going to proactively go and find solutions to the everyday challenges they're facing in their work? All right, so hiring, number one thing that you want to do as a company is, first, you know me, I always talk as a consultant, you have to write a standard operating procedure and policies. How are people hired, right? You should have in place HR policies and also very clear and standardized procedures on hiring people. Because what happens if you don't have that, you do a lot of interviews, and at the end of the day, you haven't gathered, and if you haven't had the proper questionnaire and asked them these right questions, you wasted a lot of time, you haven't achieved anything, and worstly, you haven't even collected any data that maybe some of the people you interviewed are not the right fit for that position, but they can be a fit for another position in the future. So many of the companies I'm working with, they don't have in place clear process and on how are people being brought to the company, the whole HR process. And that creates a lot of problems, right? So everything are done, and sometimes as companies are growing, very often they need to hire people quickly and they cannot find the right and proper talent they need. So we want to avoid that. So first step you want to do is really create a system and a procedure of how people are hired, and you want to create a questionnaire, interview questionnaire that's very clear, that can be written evidence, and that can be stored in a file with the person's documents and CVs that you can then easily go back if you need to contact them for some other position in the future or bring them onto your team. And also it's going to help you evaluate if you standardize these things, you're eliminating a bias And ideally, in hiring a person, few people should read this report and the answers to these crucial questions, and then few people can put their input on this person. So we eliminate that individual bias and individual prejudices and stereotypes that every person has, right? Now, let's talk about what are the questions that you should ask and what should you discover when you're hiring the person. You need to discover two things, okay? Like I said, very important when you're hiring people is you want to be looking for solution-oriented people, not problem-oriented people, right? So people who will solve problems in your company, because every business, every role, it's facing different problems, and we want people who's going to be able to solve that problem. Otherwise, they're going to always wait on us as the leaders or come back to us to ask us what do they do. So they're going to be reactive instead of proactive, right? They're not going to learn from a previous experience. They're going to constantly repeat old mistakes. And this is really frustrating for leaders and managers, and that's why you want solution-oriented people in your team. Now, maybe not everyone will be highly solution-oriented, but we want to train them and we want them to learn from their experience and at least have maybe 30% of our team that's solution-oriented, that's proactive and taking the action to improve the companies and their job role. So there are two things we need to discover. Number one is what, and number two is how. And this means when you're interviewing a person, you want to discover, for example, what did they personally contributed to solving a problem in the previous job role, right? If it's the same job role, you want to ask them, what did you personally contributed to solving a problem? What was the problem and what did you personally contributed, right? Now, very tricky thing to understand is that sometimes they're going to talk about how problem was solved, and but you need to discover, are they a person who contributed to the solution, or they were just part of the team and maybe the manager solved it. So you want to ask specifically, what have you personally contributed? And to dig a little bit deeper into this is that you can ask them, if you were assigned on another project in the middle of that one, what would be different about that project? This will directly tell you about how much they contributed to that project themselves, right? Which is very, very important. So that's discovering what did they contributed and how. Now we want to know, how did they accomplish? So I said what and how. So how did they accomplish the goals? And in the how, you want to find out if their method aligns with the value of your company. And what I mean about this is that people can solve problems and react and do things in different situations in different ways, but this has to align with your moral values of your team, and the values and the culture of the whole company, right? So the manager and the leadership will set that as a value and be very clear, and you want to see, okay, what personally you contributed and how did you solve that problem. So when they tell you the way, you want to, as an interviewer, dig a little bit deeper. How did they solve their problem, and how did they right, how did they, in general, what methods did they use, right? How did they came to that solution? Did they involve other people, or did they step across other people, right? And this is going to tell you a lot about their personalities and how they solve problems, because if they've done it in the previous company, they're going to probably do it to you as well, right? So these are two things you want to discover, what and how. Now, you want to, when you're asking questions, you want to ask 4 questions. And this is called a STAR method. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. Let me repeat. The STAR method is situation, task, action, and result. So what are these 4 powerful questions you want to ask to your candidate, right, when you're interviewing? What was the situation? What was the situation or the problem, right? What were you tasked with? This is for the task. What action did you take? And then what was the result? So let's repeat once again. So we have the situation. You ask them what was the exact situation. Then you ask them what were you tasked with to contribute? What action did you take? And what was the result? This STAR method, this powerful question really tells you, and maybe there's going to be some employees who cannot even think, right? And you want, if they have experience of being in challenging situation in companies with a lot of problems, you want to make sure that that you will really clearly see if they were assigned with some tasks, if they contributed and how much contributed, and what method action did they take, and at the end what was the result. And don't forget, you can always ask them that question if you were removed out from the project, what would change about that project, right? And also you can ask something a little bit deeper, especially if this is some kind of leadership position or sales position. For example, what was the toughest call on this project, let's say project X, and who made it, right? And you will see, are they followers? Are they maybe leaders? Are they, agreeing to take the tough things that has to be done, or they struggle with it? So this is another question that's going to really help you drill to see if this person is maybe someone who is making a tough call, or they're not, but they're able to follow and take the action that's maybe not easy to take at that point, right? When you are interviewing, like I said, in your process, all of these questions should be part of your standardized questionnaire. And you want to see in person, you will also see nonverbal communication as well, and their body language. So you can really dig deep into these questions. And I think they will contribute massively to you and your team, because like I said, you want solution-oriented people, and people who are gonna be quick on their thinking and not be afraid to take actions and change approach. At the same time, follow the leadership if they're not in the leadership position, so they're able to be part of the team and achieve the results you want to achieve, right? So make sure to create this standardized questionnaire. And like I said, in this questionnaire, include these questions. And then very important is that you want to collect this information. Ideally in companies, there should be 3 to 5 people who are gonna assess the same person, because this will eliminate the bias, and it's gonna help if those 5 people sit and share their answers and their opinion about candidate. Maybe the candidate said things differently and they got different impression. So it's going to be easier to make a decision, especially if it's a role that's very important, a leadership role or a crucial role to contribute to taking your team to the next level. You should then have several people that's gonna interview and then share their feedback, and you collect these reports. A big mistake is not writing these answers down, because if you interview 5 candidates in a day, in 2 days, you're gonna absolutely forget who said what. It's gonna be very hard to evaluate, and it's gonna be very hard to present evidence why you believe you should hire this person and not somebody else. All right. So this is the most important things to ask in an interview when you're hiring your team, and make sure to go and implement this now in your processes and when you are hiring next person in your team. In the meantime, make sure to subscribe to the podcast, give us some likes and hearts, and download this episode and share it with other people that's gonna benefit as well. We are looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. We're gonna always bring you exciting and helpful topics and some really knowledgeable and experienced guests. And thank you for listening, and we will see you in the next episode.